Okay, here's the kicker. Get this. Saudi Arabia is having a comedy festival this month. Really? Saudi Arabia. It's gonna be great. If you die on stage, you get 72 virgins. And Chappelle is performing. If you told me years ago that Saudi Arabia would be cool to have Dave Chappelle speak and England might arrest him, I would have said, "What are you smoking?"
The radical left's assault on free expression has hit an all-time high, and their newest stunts make it clear they have no plan to ease up. With his signature biting wit, he completely tore apart the woke crowd's absurdity with pinpoint accuracy, leaving everyone stunned. This wasn't just an opinion, it was a full-on takedown, the kind that burns everything in its way. Get ready, because what you're about to hear isn't just hype, it's straight heat. Now, let's get into it.
That's the great irony. Flag burning is free speech, and free speech is one of the key things that makes America great. So now that I have you on my side on that issue, don't be a hypocrite and defend attacks on speech from the left, because you either get the concept or you don't. And sadly, a lot of people don't anymore.
Bill Maher masterfully points out the irony in the entire situation. The left praises free speech as if it's their untouchable right, yet they twist outrage into a weapon to shut down anyone who dares to push back. In their version of reality, free speech only survives within a carefully crafted bubble, where every thought is screened through their ideology. Step outside that bubble, and suddenly you're labeled a bigot, a danger, or something even worse. Maher tears into this hypocrisy with sharp accuracy, reminding us that free speech isn't some perk reserved for one side. It's a fundamental right meant for everyone, even those the left refuses to tolerate.
Mostly the young who were never taught it by their derelict educational system, but also Lisa Cook. She's the Fed board member Trump is trying to fire for bullshit reasons, and they are bullshit. But when she tried to get another professor fired because he once, according to one student, was less than rapturous about Martin Luther King Day, no, she should know better. She said free speech should have its limits. Yes, it should, and does. And this comes nowhere close to them.
Lisa Cook's situation is an interesting one because it highlights the issue with activist professors who use their roles not to educate but to push ideology. Reports indicate she tried to pressure both colleagues and students into accepting her perspective instead of fostering real discussion and critical thinking. That's not teaching, it's indoctrination. I agree with her dismissal because no educator should be allowed to turn the classroom into a platform for personal agendas. Trump isn't suppressing her free speech. He's pushing back against the widespread corruption, weakening our education system, and shielding young students from biased propaganda disguised as academic work.
It's bad enough that Trump is attacking free speech from the right, throwing the Associated Press out of the press pool, calling reporters enemy of the people, threatening and suing networks simply because he doesn't like the coverage. This country can't become that. But it also can't become what the UK is now, a place where you get arrested for tweets, something that happens 12,000 times a year now in Britain. Last week, the Irish sitcom writer Graham Linehan, who's won an Emmy and 5 BAFTA awards, got off a plane at Heathrow and got arrested by 5 British cops. Not because he was selling drones to the Houthis, just because he's a crank who spends way too much time online ranting about gender ideology.
Now, once again, I don't see eye to eye with Maher on this issue. Free speech isn't a blank check. It has limits, and for good reason. Take the Associated Press, for instance. They were expelled for stubbornly calling it the Gulf of Mexico instead of acknowledging it as the Gulf of the US. That wasn't some harmless mistake. It was a deliberate move against national interest. And then there's the well-known 60 Minutes lawsuit. Trump was right to push back because it was painfully clear the program was stacked in favor of Kamala Harris. If Trump had given that kind of explosive interview, you can bet they would have aired it uncut, unedited, and raw, just to take him down.
Which is an odd obsession for a comedian from across the pond, because if men weren't allowed to dress as women, British comedy wouldn't exist. There'd be absolutely nothing left of Shakespeare, but the sonnets and Monty Python movies would be 20 seconds long. But in the words of that great Brit, Ricky Gervais, if you don't believe in a person's right to say things that you might find grossly offensive, then you don't believe in freedom of speech. You shouldn't have to eat your words at the airport. The chicken Alfredo on the flight was bad enough.
Freedom of speech isn't some privilege reserved for a chosen few. It's a God-given right for every person, a foundation of liberty that no government or mob should ever crush. The moment we let one group decide who gets to speak and who must be silenced, we abandon democracy itself. Not liking what someone says doesn't give you the moral power to erase their voice. Debate them, challenge them, respond with stronger arguments, but don't cancel them into silence. Healthy societies flourish on differing viewpoints, not forced conformity. Silencing dissent only paves the way for tyranny. That's why defending free speech isn't optional. It's absolutely vital.
Linehan may be crude, but there's plenty of non-crazy people, liberal people, who think the left has gone a little mad with trans issues. Some have expressed that opinion with literary sophistication, like J.K. Rowling. Some by getting big laughs, like Dave Chappelle. And some are downright ugly about it, like Linehan. But ugly is the price of a freedom so great as speech.
Many people have paid a steep price for daring to question the trans movement and the broader ideology tied to gender. Today, even speaking out respectfully has become risky, with disagreement treated like blasphemy. The celebrities Trump pointed to are clear examples. Some were ruthlessly canceled, losing sponsorships, roles, or entire careers, while others endured harassment, intimidation, and even arrest simply for expressing views outside the approved script. That's not freedom, it's coercion. When society punishes individuals for voicing uncomfortable truths, that isn't progress, it's authoritarianism disguised as tolerance. The fact that public figures are being muzzled should alarm every citizen who values liberty.
Tried to disappear someone for writing an anti-Israel op-ed in a student newspaper, which I found offensive, but I still would go to the mat for that person to be able to print it. And we can fight Trump on this because we have a First Amendment. England does not. And the fact that they don't, that's not a feature, that's a bug. And it's a bug that's going around Europe now. In Germany, a guy called a politician a Pimmel, which is the German word for dick. And it triggered a police raid. What a Pimmel move.
This moment serves as a powerful reminder of how fortunate we are in the United States and why it's vital to fiercely protect our right to free speech. Unlike in many parts of the world, Americans can still question authority, challenge institutions, and speak their minds without immediate fear of prison or execution. But that freedom is fragile, and its greatest threat often comes from within. When certain groups attempt to control speech and decide whose voices are allowed and whose are not, that isn't liberty, it's control. People must be free to share their opinions openly, even if those views are unpopular or controversial. If in exercising that right they cross a legal line, then they should face accountability, but never censorship simply for speaking. Free speech is the foundation of freedom, and once it's given up, it's nearly impossible to reclaim.
A guy from North Yorkshire in Britain faced 2 years in prison for wearing a Halloween costume depicting the terrorist who bombed the Ariana Grande concert. Bad taste? Yeah, bad taste is the whole point of Halloween. This Scottish man was found guilty of hate speech for a YouTube video where he taught his pug to salute when he said Sieg Heil.
Sieg Heil. Sieg Heil.
Elon Musk watched it and said, I don't see it.
I remember the uproar that broke out over Elon Musk's alleged Nazi salute and the wave of controversy it sparked across the internet and mainstream media. The story dominated headlines, pundits piled on, and social platforms erupted with outrage. But despite all the noise, there was one key difference between the US and many other parts of the world. No police showed up at his door. Musk wasn't dragged into court or thrown in jail for making a gesture people found offensive. Instead, He dealt with what every public figure in a free society faces: criticism, debate, and backlash, and that's exactly how it should work. Free speech gives you the right to speak or act, but it also gives others the right to challenge you. What it doesn't mean is criminalizing expression. That moment highlighted why America must defend speech, even the speech we despise.
Musk, Kanye, this fucking dog. They're all wrong, and they all have the right to be wrong. Britain is now considering the so-called pub law. Okay, it's not just about pubs. It's a workplace bill aimed at preventing any kind of harassment in the workplace, including verbal remarks overheard. Okay, problem is, a pub is a workplace. So is a bookstore. Would a major chain like Waterstones risk hosting a book signing by a controversial author like J.K. Rowling? And pubs? People go to pubs for two reasons: to drink and to exercise their inalienable right to talk shit.
I truly believe Britain is heading down a very dangerous road by catering to the left and steadily chipping away at free speech. In many ways, they're even worse than America on this front. What they fail to see is that this kind of censorship will eventually backfire in the most dramatic and destructive way if it isn't stopped. The disturbing reality is that it's no longer just about what you say online. Your workplace has now become a surveillance zone. Say something someone finds offensive, and suddenly you're being reported, investigated, or even hauled in for questioning. That's not democracy. It's a slow march toward authoritarianism. And the real irony is that all this noise, all this speech policing, isn't truly about protecting society. It's about catering to a fringe woke mob that feeds on outrage and intimidation. If Britain keeps going down this path, it won't just silence dissent. It will dismantle the very freedoms that once defined the nation.
They're not in the House of Lords. They're in a bar called the Drunken Cock. Any Brit will tell you the food is awful, the weather sucks, but at least you can call each other a cunt. And now that's gone? It's like making a rule at the dog park: no ass sniffing.
Bill is absolutely correct. Taking away our ability to speak freely is no different than taking away a God-given right like the right to life itself. Free speech isn't a privilege granted by government or managed by cultural elites. It's a fundamental part of being human. No side, no matter how powerful or vocal, has the authority to control what can be said or who is allowed to say it. The moment one group dominates the conversation and silences others, the very essence of liberty is lost. A society that only permits approved speech isn't free, it's controlled. And history proves that when free speech falls, every other freedom soon collapses with it. That's why it's non-negotiable. The right to speak, to argue, to question, and even to offend is the heartbeat of democracy. Without it, we're nothing more than subjects of the mob or the state. Protecting it isn't a choice, it's survival.
Okay, here's the kicker. Get this. Saudi Arabia is having a comedy festival this month. Really? Saudi Arabia. It's gonna be great. If you die on stage, you get 72 virgins. And Chappelle is performing. If you told me years ago that Saudi Arabia would be cool to have Dave Chappelle speak, and England might arrest him, I would have said, what are you smoking?
Even nations that once harshly punished dissent are starting to recognize the importance of free speech, or at least easing their grip on it. Take Saudi Arabia, for example. Not long ago, simply speaking out against authority could mean disappearance, imprisonment, or worse. The government tightly controlled every aspect of public expression, using fear to keep people silent. Yet today, we're seeing a gradual shift. The same country once infamous for silencing voices is now inviting some of America's most outspoken comedians, performers who make their living pushing limits, mocking power, and challenging cultural norms with humor. It's a striking change. And while Saudi Arabia still has far to go before achieving true freedom, the fact that they are willing to host entertainers who thrive on free expression proves the undeniable global influence of this principle. If even former hardline regimes are warming up to free speech, then Western democracies have no excuse to slide backward into censorship. Free speech is the foundation of liberty, not a privilege for a select few. The moment we allow mobs, governments, or elites to dictate who gets to speak, freedom begins to collapse. If countries once hostile to dissent can embrace expression, then we must fight to protect it, or risk losing everything. And that wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.